PK52, the Saturday morning meeting, right into the next phase, which is drive system off-road ability. Toyota spent a lot of money in getting this vehicle right. So the history of Tacoma, we've always had a locking rear differential in some of the models. So what a locking rear differential does, remember, in a differential, any wheel that has slipping, any wheel that has less traction, the power is going to try to go to that wheel. And the way we fix that in our cars is we put traction control on. But remember, traction control uses throttle reduction and brakes to trick the power to go to the other wheel. So in an off-road situation, I don't know if I'm trying to make that last hill or through that mud if I want the engine RPMs to kick down, and I certainly don't want the computer to be adding brakes while I'm trying to make it through that last portion of that real swampy mud. So we have the ability to lock the rear diff. Now I got to go to four-wheel drive, low range. When you lock the rear differential, it changes the gear ratio from 1:1 to 2.61 to 1. So it spins the wheel almost 3 times more. So at 8 miles an hour, you're running 4,000 RPMs. Big bonus off of that, when you're running low speeds and the RPMs are up, that's where your torque curve is. So it really fits into 2 modes when I go to that low range. Now, low range is a short distance, low mile per hour feature. Once you've got out of the perilous area, the mud, or you've climbed that hill, then you need to go ahead and go back to regular four-wheel drive. You don't want to run it with that diff lock because those wheels have to turn at the same rate. You're in your yard, you've dug with your shovel for a couple of hours, and that stump, you're going like, why is that still in there? Logging chain around the receiver hitch, four-wheel drive, low range, you'll be able to build you a small koi pond now because that is coming out of the ground. So you can use this truck as a truck. Isn't that crazy? And then inside the truck, we have automatic limited slip differential. Kind of tricky to engage. Once you turn track off, you're in auto LSD. And automatic limited slip differential works like this. It's like traction control or active traction control for just the rear axle. So I'm driving on a highway that's got some snow patches. There's snow, dry asphalt, snow. The problem with four-wheel drive is if I hit a patch of dry asphalt, then I really can't turn the vehicle. But I can go ahead and go ALSD to the rear, which means it's going to use the brakes to change the power back and forth across the lateral to get me going, and it's going to really reduce the amount of throttle kill. So it's kind of like rear wheel traction control beast mode, no throttle kill. So again, track off, ALSD on, it'll show on the dash. A lot of customers that buy Tacomas don't realize that you have the ALSD function. So when you're going through this, make sure that you go through this in your demo drive, and especially when you're in the cab of the truck, let's let the customer walk through all the drive systems. Four-wheel drive high, four-wheel drive low. Remember, low range, you have to go to neutral and then drop it into four-wheel drive low. So everybody knows that. Make sure the customer understands that, because it's crazy when you interview somebody that's trading one of these trucks in, they go, how often did you put it in four-wheel drive low? They go, I just never did, because nobody ever showed them why you use it or how to use it. So make sure in your demo that you demo these things, because we're actually going to charge the customer for this. Next, crawl mode. And I dig crawl mode, because everybody thinks they can drive off-road. All you got to do is put somebody behind a steering wheel of a truck with four-wheel drive, and automatically they think they're the greatest driver. They're Iron Man Ivan Stewart, baby. Everybody is the Iron Man. But obviously, they don't know how to drive off-road. Worst thing that happened is to stop your momentum. You get wheel slipping, you get spinach, you stop your momentum, and you're done. You're halfway up that hill and you start to gravitate down. That's bad. I'm just telling you right now, that is not going to end up well, body shop involved. So, I can go to crawl mode, 1 of 5 modes. I can pick my speed selector, and once I do that, four-wheel drive, low range, crawl mode, take my hands, hold the steering wheel, and point it in the direction I want to go, remove my feet from the accelerator or the brake. Don't touch them. And what it's going to do is going to use the computer, the active track, the traction control, and the computer, along with the transmission, to perfectly walk itself up or out of any situation. There's no way that any human that buys a Tacoma from a Toyota dealership can outperform what that computer is doing. You have, it doesn't matter if you're on a piece of dry asphalt, you have to let the customer experience crawl mode during the demonstration drive, and in their mind, put them in the worst situation. Even in a domestic drive, your child is sick, You got to go to the hospital. It's really icy outside. You've got to get out of your neighborhood. It's really treacherous. Crawl mode. You walk up that treacherous deal. You get your kid to the hospital. I mean, that one use right there gives you the ability to sell crawl mode and then make sure you demo it. And then multi-terrain select. You got several drive modes. One of the drive modes is set up for high speed, 4-wheel drive, that first drive mode, and multi-terrain select. So it'd be sand, and so you're driving. What that does is when you're driving in loose soil, if you got wheel spin, immediately the brake's gonna, it's gonna make sure there's no spin as you're driving at speed, starting and stopping and driving at speed. So it maintains a perfect RPM based upon that loose rock or that sand mode right there. Now, if I go low range, rock. Now, rock is a real interesting situation because I might have one wheel cambered up on a rock and one wheel down, so I got articulation. So this wheel's kind of in a bind. So I'm using my foot, now multi-terrain select, I'm driving the truck. So I use the accelerator, and the brake allows me just enough power to summit that rock and to bring that other wheel up. Then I can tap the brake, come back, and I'm working it myself, but it doesn't let me over accelerate, because the biggest part about going off-road is if you start bounding the truck, that's when you can bottom out, and you bottom out the truck, you lose all momentum. So again, computerized technology that make us a better driver. Think about this. You got a $30,000 truck here just set up with a 4-wheel drive, with the quality of Toyota and the resale value. Adding in the transmission that can think, adding in the drive system, ALSD, adding in 4-wheel drive high, 4-wheel drive low, adding in crawl mode, and adding in multi-terrain select. That's a value of $38,000 to $45,000 right there, and based upon recent history, 72% or higher return of initial MSRP on this truck after 3 years. First of all, I don't know why you would ever let anybody else have this truck, drive it forever, because it just gets better and better. Finally, just a little bit about me personally. I know you guys don't know what I drive, but I drive 150,000 mile Toyotas. My honey hole when I buy my FJ or I bought my Tundra is I try to look for something right around 150,000. For me, that's when the value of the Toyota's there. Where other trucks are trying to make it to the junkyard, salvage yard, and be sold as parts at 150,000 miles, this truck becomes a real truck. Toyota trucks, the best trucks in the world. Made in San Antonio, Texas. PK52, the Saturday Morning Meeting.